Welcome to part 3 of this Celtic in England Football Manager 2018 experiment. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2, please go and check them out first. There is a playlist on my channel so you can watch them. The first part involved Celtic starting in the Championship. They did manage to get promoted to the Premier League, and that was part 2, where Celtic were predominantly in the Premier League, although it did look like there was a bit of a chance they might turn into a yo-yo team. And in this part 3, I've holidayed 30 years into the future from the start of this experiment. So I've holidayed until June 2047. So then, where do you think Celtic are after 30 years in England? Are they an established Premier League team, or perhaps an established Championship team? Or have they been yo-yoing between the two divisions? Let's go and have a look. As you can see from the graph, it's quite clear that they have become a yo-yo team. They can't decide which division they want to be in. Since 2025-26 season, promoted, relegated, promoted, couple years in the Premier League, ended in relegation, back to the Premier League. They're flip-flopping between the two. The most seasons they've spent in the top flight in one go is 3 seasons, with the third season being a relegation. They did spend 3 seasons in the Championship here very recently, got promoted via the playoffs, but relegated in 19th, and now they didn't quite manage to get promoted back to the top flight. You can see national reputation 3 stars. We'll have a look to compare that with the likes of Rangers in Scotland, and also Cardiff City, remember, with the team that we swapped with Celtic. We'll have to see how they're getting on in Scotland as well. Perhaps they have a better reputation. They are rich though, because of course they've spent quite a few years in the Premier League, all that TV money. There's plenty of money in the Championship these days as well, especially 30 years in the future, I'm sure. So they are a good team, but they just can't seem to decide which division they want to be. I'm sure they want to be in the Premier League, but it's not quite going to plan. You see, they haven't won any cup competitions. All their Scottish achievements have been removed from the game, but all those sort of old European things are still there. But they've managed to win the Championship 3 times, runners-up twice, and third place 4 times. They've just been up and down over and over again, haven't they? They have been runners-up in the English FA Youth Cup, as you can see there. I'm guessing their under-18s team playing at quite a low level. They're playing in the Northwest Division of the under-18s. But for the English under-23 Premier Division 2 thing, they've managed to get promoted. Let's have a look to see where the reserves are. They actually finished bottom of the second tier of the under-23 Premier League. That's not the greatest. Their facilities, surely they've still got decent facilities. They've got well-established youth recruitment, but only adequate junior coaching. Still playing Celtic Park, 60,000-seater stadium. They've got a 20-year stadium sponsorship. Excellent youth facilities, but below average data analysis facilities. Excellent training facilities, good corporate facilities, and a good pitch condition. So overall, they should be in a good state because obviously they've been in the Premier League, getting lots of money. There's no excuse to have poor facilities at this point. This is the history of Celtic in England then, basically. As you can see, first season in the Championship, they took a few years to get promoted, 3 years in the Premier League, relegated, promoted, relegated. It really has been up and down. The highest place they finished in the Premier League, let's just have a look at the Premier Division. The highest they finished is 12th, and that was the second season in the Premier League. So they've not had a great time in the top flight, have they? That's the most points they've managed to get, 44 points. I think it would probably be the same if I holidayed a long way into the future, even further into the future. If this video gets 500 likes, then I know there's enough interest for me to continue this a bit further, and I'll go, say, 20 more years into the future. But I kind of feel like this is what's going to happen to Celtic. They might suddenly get bought out by a rich Chinese bloke who pumps a ton of money in for transfers and that sort of thing. But I can't imagine that it will change unless something like that happens. Transfer-wise, they have... I'm going to go to records in a second because I've already had a look at that, and there is a massive transfer. If I just go back, they don't spend masses, and they do sell a lot. As you can see here, £73 million worth in the 2043 season. So they are a bit of a selling club rather than a buying club, unfortunately. But if we go to records, the highest fee they've ever paid for a player was this chap, Lee O'Donnell, £84.8 million back in 2029. He's now he retired at the age of 35 4 seasons ago, but you can see it ended up at big clubs, Arsenal and Manchester City. Started at Barnsley, all places, but managed to get 100 caps for his country. £84 million from Southampton. But then they sold him the next season to Stoke City for £50 million. Why did they make a £34 million loss on him? I'm guessing it's because they got relegated that season and they had to sell him. But wow, huge amounts of money. But it didn't amount to anything because they lost him a season later. So not the greatest. You might see some interesting records in here from recent years. I'm just going to go to league position so you can see what happened there. Attendances, they're still getting decent attendance, although in the Championship this season, 2044, you can see their highest attendance was only 41,000. I'm not sure why it was so low that year. These are the most goals in a season. They had John Youssef getting 25 goals in one season. I think that's the best we've seen on this. I mean, 2042, their top goal scorer got 5 goals. That is dreadful. Really, really quite bad. And that's their highest transfer fee paid every single season for those of you interested. This is the current squad then. There's hardly any Scottish players in there now, interestingly. It's pretty much an all-English squad. I don't know if that's because the players coming in through the academy are English. No, they're still Scottish. But by the time they get to the first team, either they're not good enough or they're being bought out by someone else if they are too good. Meaning they've only got 3 Scottish players in this team. If I just go to my other view to look at the potential and current ability of the players, the best player at the club is actually a guy on loan from Chelsea. He's a Welshman, 21-year-old Welshman with 4 caps for his country, 136 current ability. You know, this is good enough for Championship level, but if they're to get promoted and they don't improve on this, that's the problem that they have. They just don't have a good enough squad for the Premier League. They've obviously tried to sign world-class players. £84 million are one, but it hasn't quite worked out for them. Most valuable player at the club is that defender, but the most valuable player that they own is actually a guy, Robert McAndrew, 23 years old. He is Scottish. He's got 3 goals in 3 games for Scotland. That's not bad going. He's worth £15.75 million. He basically is the best player that they own, I think. Let's just have a look at the most recent season then to see what happened in the Championship. You can see Sheffield Wednesday, Brentford and Everton were promoted, with Celtic missing out in the playoff semi-finals. Everton were the team that managed to win that, of course. But quite interesting recent winners. You've seen Sheffield Wednesday go up a couple of times. Bristol City, they're both sort of yo-yo teams, I guess, along with Celtic. Everton, they've turned into a bit of a yo-yo team over the years. Premier League-wise, Tottenham have started to dominate. You can see it was a bit of a mixture at the start. We did see Spurs win that second season, but then they didn't win it for ages. We saw dominance from Manchester United, Chelsea, Man City. Liverpool did win one title, but Spurs have been completely dominant, apart from 2 seasons, for the last 15 years, basically. Reading finished 3rd most recently. Wolves finished 3rd. Middlesbrough's finished 1st. So there has been some changes, despite the fact I've not really done anything apart from put Celtic into England. We've seen some natural growth from teams like Reading and Wolves. Reading have actually won the most recent FA Cup. Wolves have won it a couple of times as well. We haven't seen Celtic feature, unfortunately. Same with the Carabao Cup as well. Would have been nice to see Celtic actually win a cup competition, but they couldn't even manage that. Is this what you think would happen if Celtic got put into England? You know, there's always talk of them being stuck into English football. You know, if they were put straight into the Premier League, would they struggle, or would they be able to be fine? Because they'd get that Premier League TV money. They've got a big stadium, a massive fan base. They've got decent players already. I wonder how they would cope. The game thinks they would kind of struggle. They'd become a yo-yo team, basically. One of the biggest problems, I think, is managers. They've been through so many managers. It's absolutely ridiculous. Look at this. In 30 years... I can't even be bothered to count, but they've had so many managers. Obviously, there's a lot of caretaker managers in there, but still, there is a lot of full-time managers here, and I think the longest is David McDonald, 3 years, 129 days for this regen. I think that's the longest. David Adams, 3 years, 75 days. But yeah, it doesn't look... Oh, we can hide caretakers, even without the caretakers in there. That's a lot of managers, isn't it? averaging probably about a year and a half in charge of the club. I guess that's standard with English football these days, so it's not really a surprise that they've had so many managers in 30 years. So what's happened to Scotland in 30 years then? Internationally, they've now got Sean Welsh in charge. But you can see the top teams. Cardiff are considered the best team in Scotland now. You know, Celtic won't be on this because they're an English team now, but Rangers, Aberdeen, those are the top three in Scotland, and we'll have a look at the Ladbrokes Premiership in a minute. But you can see, I think the reputation might have improved a bit. 3.5 stars. I feel like that's gone up. Maybe this has added an element of competitiveness to Scotland once again. Celtic, they're almost guaranteed. They might as well hand Celtic the title before the season even starts these days. And maybe the other clubs just don't see the point in even competing. Now that there's a sort of competition between Cardiff, Rangers and Aberdeen, there's a chance to get into the Champions League. There's a chance to progress. And maybe it's kind of benefited Scotland in a strange way, even though we've removed their best team. But they're really high, well, relatively high in the rankings. 23rd, as you can see there. They're doing pretty good. Ladbrokes Premiership. Let's have a look then. Aberdeen have won the most recent one. It's actually 7th in the competition reputation thing, which I don't think is too bad. I feel like at the start of the save, it's all the way down here, around with the Belgian and Russian divisions. But 3.5 stars, I don't think that's too bad. The English Premier Division's in 2nd with La Liga top. But Aberdeen, most recent winners. Rangers did dominate for a few years, as you can see there, with Aberdeen more often than not finishing 2nd. So Rangers kind of did turn into the new Celtic, winning all those leagues in a row. So maybe my point about competitiveness isn't exactly true, where Rangers were winning the league quite easily for many years. But in more recent times, Cardiff have managed to win 4 of the last 6, but Rangers and Aberdeen have also won it. So I kind of feel like it is a three-way battle between those three. You can see Aberdeen are 4 points ahead of Cardiff. They didn't run away with it. If we just go back, Cardiff 3 points ahead, Cardiff 4 points ahead. That was an impressive title win from Cardiff City, as you can see there. Rangers 3 points ahead, Cardiff 1 point ahead. So there's certainly more competitiveness compared to when Celtic were dominating. Rangers sometimes ran away with it, but they never had an unbeaten season. This was almost unbeaten, 1 loss that season, if we just go back. But Rangers currently 3.5 star reputation. That is higher than Celtic, but financially they're not as well off because they're not in England. They've not got that TV money coming in. So I'm not sure how they've done in the Champions League. Look at all those league titles. It's ridiculous. Let's just have a look. So Champions League, they have been getting through to the group stages pretty consistently, as you can see there. They did lose in the first knockout round a couple of times as well. Got through against Bayern Munich, got through against Monaco. But on the whole, they do go out in the group stages. Euro Cup wise, it looks like the best they got to a semi-final. Looking at it there, not bad going. So they've done quite well. Arguably better than Celtic have done in Europe in recent years. I know Celtic have managed to get through to group stages, but Rangers consistently have managed to get through to group stages on this and qualified a couple of times. Cardiff City, on the other hand, 4-star reputation, secure finances. So they are a whole star better off than Celtic in regards to reputation. Celtic, they were the big boys in Scotland, but now they're just an average team in England. And that's probably where they've lost a star rating, I suppose, since then. Lewis McLeod is in charge of... There's not many real-life people left in this. It's mainly regens, by the way. But Cardiff City, they've done really well. You can see here, they actually got through to a final of a Euro Cup and they lost against Manchester United. Let's just go and have a look for a second. We've had some interesting winners. Middlesbrough have won it. Wolves have won it. But yeah, Cardiff City, runners-up in 2043. That's pretty good going from them. Champions League-wise, not as many Champions League as Rangers because they haven't managed to win the league, of course. But you can see they did get through to a few group stages in a row here. They, in fact, managed to get through to the first knockout round and lost against Barcelona this season. So that's really unlucky from them. Just looking at the recent Champions League winners. It's been a real mixture, actually. We've seen Man City and Tottenham win it in recent years, but Monaco, PSG, Atletico Madrid. We've not seen Real Madrid and Barcelona dominate this competition for a long time. But yeah, Cardiff are doing really well. They've got some good players. Bobby Curry, great name. He's their best player, plays for England, 14 caps for his country at the age of 30, looks like a top guy. Facilities wise, they have a 41,000-seater stadium, so they've built a new stadium. Have they? No, it was built in 2009. I didn't think their stadium was that big, but maybe it's been upgraded, possibly, in terms of capacity. I feel like it must have been upgraded. I don't think Cardiff have that big a stadium, do they? They've got superb training facilities, superb youth facilities, a few adequate things in there, but they seem to have spent money on their youth academy as well. So, good times for Cardiff. They've also managed to win the Scottish Cup 5 times, as you can see there. The Betfred Cup, they've won 5 times. Let's just have a quick look at the most recent winners for you. Yeah, Cardiff have managed to dominate this in recent years. But real mixture of teams winning the Scottish Cup, as you can see there. Betfred Cup, Hearts have done particularly well, and Cardiff in more recent years. But I think we'll end it there, guys. It's been pretty fascinating holidaying 30 years in this save. Celtic, unfortunately, they haven't managed to establish themselves in the Premier League. They've not managed to win a title, a cup or anything. And they've been worse off. Like, Celtic fans, if this was to happen in real life, I think you'd probably prefer to stay in Scotland, because you actually qualify for Champions Leagues, you get to have European tours, you get to go and play against the likes of Barcelona. You might not necessarily win very many games in Europe, but there's still that chance, isn't there? Whereas here in England, you've become a yo-yo team between the Premier League and Championship. You've not really ever been close to winning a cup competition. You've never been close to getting into Europe. I feel like you'd be better off in Scotland if this was to become true. Anyway, I have said if this video gets 500 likes, I will holiday another 20 years. But I guess it's probably unlikely that we'll see much change. But you never know, Football Manager's a funny thing. We've seen Reading do particularly well on this save, so there's no reason why Celtic can't suddenly establish themselves in the Premier League. But until next time, enjoy FM18, and I'll see you very soon.